All right, today we are diving deep into something that looks simple but is actually, incredibly complex, welding aluminum. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at the hidden science.
I mean, it's a huge frustration for anyone who works at this stuff. You lay down what looks like a perfect bead. It's clean, it looks strong, it passes every visual test. But then you put it under real-world stress, and bang, it fails. So what's the deal?
Well, the answer isn't something you can see with the naked eye. To really find out what's going on, we have to go microscopic. We're going to witness this incredible battle happening inside the metal as it melts and freezes in just a fraction of a second.
And what's so wild is just how different aluminum is from something like steel. When you weld steel, the heat can actually make the metal around the weld stronger. But with aluminum, whoa, it's the exact opposite. The heat creates the zone of weakness, a kind of built-in vulnerability right next to your beautiful weld. And that right there is the heart of the challenge. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this weakness, we gotta look at the anatomy of the weld itself. The insane heat from the welding torch creates these totally distinct regions in the metal. And, well, each one has its own story and its own dangers. So here's our map. Right in the middle, you've got the fusion zone. We'll call it the FZ. This is ground zero. It's where the metal completely melts. Then, surrounding it, you have the heat-affected zone, or the haze. Now, the metal here doesn't actually melt, but the heat is so intense that it still completely changes its internal structure.
Let's start with that fusion zone. This is where it all happens. The base metal, any filler wire you're using, it all gets mixed together into this one molten soup. Everything that was once a solid is now a liquid, and how it freezes back into a solid, that's what determines the starting strength of the weld itself.
And then you've got its next-door neighbor, the heat-affected zone. Now remember, no melting is going on here. But don't let that fool you. The thermal shock alone is enough to completely mess with the alloy's carefully engineered properties. And honestly, this is often the weakest link in the whole chain. All right, let's dive deep. We're going inside that molten pool, into the fusion zone, to see this chaotic race as liquid metal tries to become a solid structure again. You know, how this metal freezes is literally everything. This chart here shows the different ways it can happen. So depending on the temperature gradient, that's the G, and how fast the crystals grow, that's the R, you get totally different structures. If it cools slowly and steadily, you might get nice orderly planes. But in welding, it cools super fast, so you often get these complex, tree-like structures called dendrites. And hey, this isn't just academic. The kind of structure you end up with directly leads to real-world problems. For pure aluminum, you might get a bunch of pores. For other alloys, you can get these continuous paths between the crystals that are just perfect highways for cracks to travel down. The very blueprint of the metal can become a roadmap for failure. So as that molten pool is freezing, it's a mad dash. Liquid metal can hold a ton of dissolved gas, especially hydrogen. But as it starts to solidify, it can't hold as much, so that gas gets squeezed out. If it can't escape to the surface in time, it gets trapped, forming these tiny bubbles or pores inside your weld. And get this. The tolerance for this trapped gas is all over the place depending on the alloy. Just look at this data. The 2219 alloy, it can barely handle any hydrogen, just 0.45 milliliters. But then you look at 7039, and it can handle more than 5 times that amount before porosity becomes a huge problem. So the material you choose completely changes the rules of the game. So the fusion zone is tricky for sure, but the real danger, it's often lurking right next door. Let's shift our focus to the HAZ, where the metal gets cooked, but not completely melted. This is the spot, the most dangerous area. It's not the liquid pool, and it's not the untouched base metal. It's this weird transitional boundary inside the HAZ. Here, the heat is just hot enough to melt the weakest parts of the metal structure, specifically along the edges between the solid grains. And that weakness leads to this nasty business, liquefaction cracking. This diagram shows it perfectly. On the left, you've got the fusion zone. It's solidifying, it's getting stronger, and it's shrinking. As it shrinks, it pulls on the HAZ right next to it. But look, the boundaries between the grains in the HAZ are still partially liquid, kind of like slush. They have zero strength. So that powerful pull from the solidifying weld literally rips the weakened grain boundaries apart. Yeah, it really just comes down to simple physics, you know? The stress from that shrinking weld just keeps building and building until it overpowers the weak, slushy part of the HAZ. And once it does, snap, a crack is born. Okay, So we've seen the bad guys at the microscopic level. We've got porosity, these weird dendritic structures, and this nasty liquation cracking. So how do welders and engineers fight back? How do you actually tame this chaotic microstructure? Well, they fight back with science. You can add what are called green refiners, things like titanium or boron. They act like little seeds, encouraging lots of small, strong, interlocking crystals to form instead of big, weak ones. You can also meticulously control your welding parameters, like heat input and travel speed. You can use advanced techniques like pulsed current welding. And, this one's huge, you choose the perfect filler metal, one designed to change the chemistry of the weld pool just enough to make it more resistant to cracking. So it all comes down to this, right? The fate of a weld, whether it holds or fails, is decided at a scale thousands of times smaller than our eyes can see. And understanding this microscopic battlefield, well, it's not just about fixing bad welds, it's about preventing them. Which leaves us with the big question for the materials scientist out there. How do we design the next generation of alloys to win this fight before it even starts?